and welcome. I'm Maria from Fadas Digitais and I'm here to talk about proposals. So, what we don't want to do in consultative selling is to fall into the proposal pit. And what that means is when you're in the final stages of selling or closing a sale, the proposal can actually hinder the process. And there's sort of red flags on the way up to that request that we should be pretty much aware. It shouldn't come as a surprise. So, as part of the Triphasic Sales method, a methodology inside your program, this is one of the trainings that you should be looking out for when you're actually, under the direct selling module. So I thought I'd share this with you before we go into the mastery level. So we're going to talk about, as always, the fundamentals and the basics. If you haven't connected with me, please do so. And also on LinkedIn's business page or company page. As you know, I'm very economic with my time and productivity, so I try to repurpose these trainings wherever I can. So you will probably see them around, but don't worry, your valuable content is safe. So this is the kind of macro level understanding of a proposal. And if I'm honest, and we all done it as a buyer or as a sales rep, we either send the proposal to avoid talking to someone as a document to kind of shield us from a stage of having to speak to someone, or as a buyer and dealing with suppliers and people who are trying to sell us something. It was one of the ways we could use to divert the attention from us and actually having to speak to someone about a product or service. So we need to look intelligently and with a smart cap on how to avoid these traps and spotting how proposals could be a way of wasting your time in a critical sales process, regardless of the price and regardless of the content text of the service or the type of service you're offering. So, what is a proposal and what is its actual role in the great context of selling? It's very important to know to whom you should send it and how to send it depending on the person, and you would have gauged that in your interactions. And I encourage you to be creative, because nowadays you have to be creative whatever you do, especially when you're leading your sales, leading and driving business development, and obviously strategic considerations to have. As you know, when you think of a proposal, you might be romanticizing the fact that to reach the level of accepting an offer from somebody, you've got to have that proximity and that relationship pretty much established and initiated in your pre-sales and your pre-qualification and pre-selection stage before you get to kneeling down on the floor and actually kicking the question. So, in a parallel kind of universe, in the commercial sense, a proposal in the commercial context is a formal document that is only presented to a potential customer that we've already selected, we've already qualified, we've already did the safety net questions and all the tactics and strategies that I've taught you in different modules, detailing a solution or a couple of solutions, because we don't want to confuse people with too many offers and too many details as to the benefits to address and how you're going to fill that specific need to reach them from A to B and give them that transformation, because we don't want to educate strictly. We want to transform people through the experience of dealing with us and making the most of our own kind of life experiences in the context of the industry or perhaps in a new industry. So make sure that the value is in you, in what you offer, and that personal touch. So the objective of the proposal is to formalize the verbal agreement with no surprises, no new things. You're literally just reiterating what was discussed in a contractual sort of type of format of business deal. And do not fear rejection, and don't use it as a form of avoiding phone calls. In fact, when someone asks you for a proposal, just ask for specifics. I'm going to go into that in terms of the mastery of a proposal discussion and negotiation, what to ask before, during, and after. But for now, never use a proposal as a substitution for direct calling, direct speaking, because you get so much more from listening to people, listening to their voices, their posture. And if you are privileged to meet them, it's even better. So try to avoid, and even if you feel a little bit of fear and anxiety, just go for it, because you'd be surprised. And we like surprises of that kind. So a proposal is not a discovery document. You don't send it to someone and find out five different things that you actually didn't know about and wasn't even covered there. That critical things that we will explore in the mastery level. Um, it's not a sales document at all, although it is a resource that you do complement in your sales process. It's not in itself a sales document to sell and to ask, you know, by itself to buy. So it is part of the process, but it's not uniquely for a one point sales contact sort of sale. No, because they will reject it. And I've had very horrible terror stories where, with hundreds of thousands of pounds, even more for recurrent business or retainers, where people got really the shock of their life because they didn't put in the work before that stage. And we'll talk about that later in another training. It's not a service contract. It doesn't have it's not an agreement contract at all, because it has different parameters and different content in it. So be aware of that. So red flags and myths that we all wish were true, or some of us, that sending a proposal guarantees a sale. It doesn't. It doesn't guarantee. And as I said, it can actually become a source of a lot of anxiety and heightened stress. And it can deter someone and put someone off if you put something in it that actually wasn't even addressed before. We should always avoid complex proposals. So if you think the myth of sending, oh, the more information I put in this document, the better, it's not true. In fact, nowadays, it has to be streamlined, concise, precise, and as short as possible because of our shrinking attention spans, for sure. And I have some stories about that. I have a lot of stories in our meetings, right? And talking to companies and people who are obviously working as hard as they can to get to bring in the business, especially before the summer, before the holidays, before the school break. So SMEs and medium companies have limited resources. So therefore the time and the research, efforts that we make, and the formats and sending it and asking for a decision and all that energy that you're going to put into it can deplete you. So make sure you control that process very well to a T, with dates and timings. And always remember, there's always other sources of information you can direct people to. It doesn't have to be a proposal. You might have something already constructed, like a pack, like a template proposal that you already have, like a one pager or website page or landing page or VSL, whatever it may be, could actually be a good solution as a replacement. So you don't have to create something from scratch that you just don't have the time to do per week. So if I speak normally to about 25 to 35 people a week, if I was to make a proposal for every single one of them, that's all I would have probably do. Yeah. So when you send the proposal, don't lay back and relax and chill like little Felix here. Uh, you have to be on top of it. You have to give yourself in your calendar and your workflow, like I teach you, your sales process. A proposal is one touch point that you need to make sure it's covered and you follow through and you chase and you discuss, because you need to keep your focus on the purpose of closing the sale and of selling within a time space frame, right? So that is the context. It is part of the process, but it can be modified, it can be adjusted. And of course, it should slightly, but not tremendously. There shouldn't be structural, life-changing changes in a proposal. And of course, it's always should be looked at as a final stage or step in the scheme of things, in the scheme of the process of selling. So, some red flags that I'm going to caution you to right now before we proceed that you need to be aware of. And one of them is probably the most obvious, but when you have a lack of clarity and you haven't done all your discovery call and all the questioning and all the, suitability and all the adequate fit list that you have against objectives, don't create one, because you're just going to be missing the target. If you're pressured by the customer or the client to an urgent proposal, that might seem a little bit artificial or too soon in your interaction with them. Just try to avoid that. Their strategies and tactics in discussion and negotiation and in your speaking with them that I give you in the mastery and also in the sales consultative sales module as well. Make sure that you're not talking to a gatekeeper, okay, or access controller. So that's the person that can always say no but can never say yes. I say that all the time. They are the gatekeepers. They love to have that sense of power, at least when they talk to someone external to the organization. And if you send it to them, it will just sit in your inbox. You won't get that feedback straight away because they still have to send it to a second or third person. So make sure you know who makes the decision. If you're dealing with an organization, if it's a direct client, then it's a lot easier, right? Don't make it vague, and don't change a lot of information. Or if they come back to you with the information, I've advised someone, a couple of people in the past month, don't just redo the proposal with key elements and send it back. Try to have a conversation in between to really nail down what it is that they wanted to change and for you to understand why. And what I love about it is it's another option for you and an excuse for you to call them. So it's great. And they normally pick up the phone straight away and they speak to you because they're interested to know what you're going to be doing and what's the final proposal. So don't put excessive focus on pricing. Words are very important. The type and content and the type of words you use. Always use the word investing. Always try to avoid the words pricing and cost. A cost is a loss, an investment will multiply. So make sure that's stated. I state that all the time in our trainings. So important things to consider before we finish this particular training is to consolidate the information of a client in a file, as you well know, either in your client area or in whatever way you can do, making that document a live document. Work with defined dates and targets to chase and follow up, which shouldn't be more than a couple of days. And just be aware of weekends. Be aware of bank holidays. If you're dealing with another country somewhere else, make sure you know what those deadlines are. And if there's any bank holidays, for example, tomorrow there's a bank holiday in Portugal, and I wasn't aware of it, but it's in my calendar. I have like 3 or 4 calendars in my calendar with all the bank holidays and holidays and national days to be aware of, because that could be the difference between that someone going on holiday for a long holiday and you won't hear them for another 10 days. So that's a big dent. Yeah, that's another almost month delayed in decision making. So agree on the changes verbally and transfer them to paper after. Request a decision confirmation as soon as possible. Make sure that's on your workflow and your calendar and that you follow that through and you have the visibility to know when that's coming up. And one final tip: before you invest in deciding to send a proposal and create one, validate your potential customers or company's interest, that they know the budget, that they have the authority and the urgency. They are keen to be a sign up. They're not just exploring, they know. And make sure that you know and are aware of that a successful proposal is one made for someone who is truly the best fit, and they're ready to move forward. There's no barriers to decision making. So this is the sort of face they shouldn't have on the other side, a face of surprise and shock. So there should be no surprises in any proposal that you create or send. So it should be free of any surprises, all right? And there's tactics and ways of saying those things beforehand, which I will equip you in your program. So to conclude, I'd like to thank you for your time, and to conclude the proposed bid fundamentals, make sure you take notes, that you implement, and remember, theory, ideas, and instruction with no action is worthless. So implementation is key, so you can reiterate and you can improve. The next time I'm going to be creating the proposal, sort of mastery and dominion over that, and then you can implement those changes. And for now, just make sure that you go ahead and implement, download the resources, save this video, make notes, make sure you watch the next training. And thank you for being here. I'm Maria from Fadas Digitais, and I'll see you soon.